Hello everybody, how are you doing? Hopefully you are all well. Whether you're all fit like me, not me, I don't know. But yeah, I've got to try and keep things a bit light. Yes, this is a serious matter. I have some notes. I don't know why you've clicked on this video. You might see in the thumbnail, maybe a regular subscriber. But yes, I'm currently injured with not one, but both legs have mid-achilles tendinopathy. I have to think about what I've said, what I have, because sometimes we can get the words a bit jumbled up, mixed up. You know, tendinitis instead of tendinopathy, just Achilles tendinitis instead of mid-Achilles. But hey, enough of that. I'd like to hear from you guys because you've all been leaving some wonderful comments. And what I'm looking to cover in this video is, because I've done some notes, is I'm going to go through 3 points, but basically the injury strategy. How do you deal with injury? A lot of you, literally almost hundreds, either publicly commented or private messages through various social media platforms or emails that have come into me, have all had various injuries over our periods of running. It seems to be inevitable because even at some point, apparently I've heard some statistics, at any one time, there's about 50% of runners are injured. Yeah, that's very high. And we often ask ourselves how things happen. So I'm going to go through, and as I said, leave in the comments below how you've dealt with your injuries, how you've moved on, because I'm going to go through 3 points. Yes, the notes I have here. So I'm going to cover number one, how did I get injured? Because a lot of people have been asking, how did I get injured? There's a few speculations. How am I coping? Sometimes not too well, but I'll cover what is going on and what next. So there's 3 points I'm going to be going through in that order. And without beating around the bush, number one, how did I get injured? Straight to the point, too much walking. Yeah, I know. Having taken all the precautions and everything when I'm doing the running, as my notes fall down, having taken all the precautions whilst running wherever, sometimes we take for granted, and this is where I made a mistake. And whilst a lot of people say we learn more from our mistakes than when things go right, I would fundamentally disagree. We learn from everything every day. It's just whether we're prepared to take on board the lessons from that. When things are successful, we learn from things are successful. When things go wrong, we learn from things go wrong. So for me, and Colin Johnson did pick up on this. Yeah, he did see the volume of walking. He follows me on Strava. In the description, there's links to my Strava and so on. The volume of running did go up way too quickly. And also the thing that took me over the limit was that 55k ultra walk. 13 and a half hours on feet. Not good, yeah, and unfortunately that's what tipped me over the balance. But I do believe, and I like to keep things in perspective, I believe that happened for a reason, because this may, I'm just thinking how, what would have happened if this happened later? Which is one of the things, if I go on to point number two, how am I coping? I have to admit, it's now 10 days? Or 9 days. It's Tuesday that I'm recording this. So it's been 9 days of no running. Some days are better than others in terms of how I'm coping. And I'm not going to do an oh woe is me type video, because I want to focus, for me, how I'm coping. I'm focusing on what I have, not what I don't have. Yeah, does that make sense? Because often we tend to forget how good we've got it. Yeah, even when we're injured, out of action, not able to run, things are better than we actually imagine. Every day I see people, meet people, whether it be socially, business or whatever, and there's always going to be someone who is worse off than you, than me. Yeah? Yes, it's disappointing. And in fact, I'm going to read some messages that I've had, and some are public tweets that I've had, and I found this really resonated well, and you might relate to this if you've been injured or are injured. And this is from, I don't know what his real name is, but he says, not the real Gus Parten, so Welsh in London. The hardest part of an injury is the acceptance that you are actually injured, and prolonging the agony just makes it worse. Once you're no longer in denial, you can begin to move on. Does that make sense? Does that resonate? And then Jeannie Brady, who's a fellow Masters runner, thank you for this comment, Jeannie. Yes, she agrees with what Gus has said. It's a bit like a grief process. You have to let go of some of your hopes, goals, but of course you can recover from an injury and build some extra resilience on the way back. So there's some profound knowledge, not from me, and also speaking to a lot of you guys. You know, for some I've spoken directly on Zoom, Skype, StreamYard, whatever it is, and it's keeping things in perspective, yeah. And you know, sometimes, as I say, it's how do we stay sane with this? And for me, that the hardest part has been accepting. And I think if you've seen the video with Dr. Foot in terms of the electroshock treatment, he immediately said to me, and I found that really hard, he says, that's it, you got to cancel everything. Everything that I had booked in September, cancel a lot. It ain't happening. And I'm thinking, why not? Because I've had injuries before and I've literally come back. But then I look back on some of those injuries and some of the comments that I've seen with people where you quickly want to get back to running and then you come back too soon, too intense, too long, and then another injury occurs. It might be something different, and that sets you back even further. So for me, and I don't know about you guys, I'm looking at the long game. So I'm already looking forward in terms of what's happening there. So that's one of the things that I use to help me cope. Does that relate to some of you there? Leave it in the comments below. Maybe it helps. As I say, I produce these videos, no frills, no spills, just say it how it is. And some of you may relate to it and some of you may not. I really do believe things happen for a reason, and lessons learned comes in. For me, maybe one of my lessons is patience. And for those of you who watch all my videos all the way through, you clearly have the patience, which is one of the ways of building resilience and fortitude when it comes to running. For me, one of the key things, I've had other interests, and whilst they might not be as much fun as running, I might not enjoy it as much as I enjoy running, but it's still other interests. It takes my mind off it. And I've got to say, one of the hardest bits for me, because of not expending so much energy. Yes, I've got a lot of energy, which I think Rachel Davis picked up on, is having a lot of energy and not being able to run can be hard, yeah? So for me, the hardest bit is not having pizza so often. Yeah, I know. It's one of the tough things in life we have to deal with, is not eating the level of stuff that we did when we were running. So I have to change that habit and change the things around. And as I say, it's things that we need to learn. I don't know. Do you relate to it? Let's hear from you in the comments below. Leading on to my third point, which is what next? Because sometimes as part of the coping, what am I going to do next? So every day I'm doing the rehab. You know, you would have seen so many of these Achilles type training, the heel drops, what they're called, eccentric heel drops or eccentric, I can't remember the exact words. I just do the exercises. And looking at what we have here is, for me, the biggest thing of what's going to be happening next, because I've had to cancel. Whilst the races are all still booked, I'm not turning up. Like this week is the Worcester Pitchcroft 10K. I'll go along, spectate. Last Sunday was the, what was it on Sunday? It was at 26.2 marathon distance. Yeah, Mac was running there. So that race, I just went to spectate. And there's more coming up that I booked. So, you know, cancellations, some of them I don't allow cancellations refund. I've got hotels, but I'm looking at and repositioning them as holidays. So I might go there and spectate and let's see what happens. Yeah. As I say, focus on what I have, not what I don't have, because often if we focus on what we don't have, it can end up being a downward spiral, which doesn't really help us mentally at all. But that's just my opinion. I don't know what you think. Now, the biggest thing for me to focus on in terms of what happens next is I am looking forward. I haven't seen yet what races for 2024, but I am looking that far ahead because I'm taking this injury as quite a serious warning signal to me that maybe I'm doing some things maybe not quite right. Yes, I've been having some great achievements, great milestones reached, and getting faster, even despite being 62. But that is putting a body to an absolute limit. So I'm looking at races next year. I might take part in some races, but in terms of racing, I really believe that for me, racing hard ain't going to be happening until next year. Yeah. Now that's a bullet that I need to swallow, and I think I've swallowed it and getting on with life. Yeah. So not getting into my pity party, although a lot of people would say that misery likes company. So ain't going to get that here. Yes, I've produced other videos that show that and show the emotion. And I have got some other content that will show you what's been happening earlier on in the year, because sometimes I've gone through things which, do I really need to share it, you know, in terms of what's going on in personal life and so on? For me, I don't feel the need to do that all the time. And that's why I just like to keep it real. It's not a case of what happens here, there, everywhere. It's a case of how does it impact the running, and for a lot of it I can deal with and it copes and it works really well. So looking at races of 2024, that's where I'm looking at in terms of what next. I am looking at other content I'll keep producing on here, which will hopefully help you guys and keep us all going, because I think injuries, as I say, at any one time, around 50% are injured. So there's going to be lots of you lovely people who will be clicking on these links in years to come who are getting injured and looking at ways of how do we cope. And hopefully this has helped in some way. So that's enough for me rabbiting on this particular one and talking about injury strategy, however you want to call it. So for me, focusing on those 3 points, which is how did I get injured? How am I coping? Basically accepting this, I'm not being in denial, and then looking forward at what's next. So hopefully that's helped you. See you at the next video. Who knows which one will be coming out, whether it's some races that I've been spectating at, or like the wild one, which is what the name of the race was, or whether there'll be some more how we deal with injuries and more detail about the injuries and some other recovery type procedures I'm looking at, because you all enjoyed the electroshock treatment. See you all soon. Take care, guys. Bye, bye, bye. The power's gone up and it's proper stingy. Ooh, going right up the leg.